Yins, guys! Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. Today's January 31st. The MLB Players Association brought their counter offer to the table, and then they met again the very next day. Could be good, still no agreement, but it's a good sign that they're talking a bit more often. The Hall of Fame results are out. We're going to break down our thoughts a little more on this tonight, and more teams are interested in trading for Bryan Reynolds. No kidding. My name is Josh, and I'm joined always by my brother, Jake. What's up, Jake?
How we doing, man?
Doing good.
So, just real quick, little tidbit here, off-season stuff, workout stuff. Saw a little video article thing about Mitch Keller.
Yeah.
Looks promising. He was sitting around 93 miles an hour, this year with his fastball, which was down a little bit, but now he's working out and he's consistently at 97.
Okay.
He even touched 100.
I saw a video where it was like he was popping like 98 a little bit.
Yeah. Looks good too, because I mean, like I said, it was a video.
Yeah.
Looked like his fastball had some movement too, so it's not 97 and pencil straight.
Yeah.
It's 97 with movement. Saw a couple on the video, a couple sliders that look just filthy. So he's working hard. Hopefully, we'll see how it translates. But
that's a good point. He's working hard. Let's see where it goes. And, hey, this is another year where we're going to follow the Mitch Keller story. And this is almost his chance, right?
Yeah, I think this year we're really going to see this year what we got, because last year he was so inconsistent. I mean, he showed signs of it, but if he showed signs of it hitting at 93, that's 5 miles an hour different on his average. That's a big deal.
And if you can get the movement on there along with it to make it, a little bit something else. Yeah. Hey, we've been talking about it a little bit. We've been talking about it. The NFL games, once again this week. We're recording this late, so both games are over. Both of them very exciting, 3-point games. It's been really good. Once they got the riffraff out of there that shouldn't have been in the playoffs, it's been a lot of really good games. And I don't mean riffraff like, I say that very loosely, right? All I'm saying is they added a 7th team for each side, and those two teams got beat pretty bad. And I know that we're, fond of one in this city, but it just showed that, adding more teams, MLB, doesn't really mean that you're adding more quality games.
Right.
However, this is one example. There may be still a 7 seed team in the future that makes a run for it because they got there late, and you know what I mean? So, I'm mostly speaking very loosely. But, yeah, I mean, I really thought at one point, I said last week about if the Bengals would make it, which I did not think they were going to, but how funny it would be if it was the Niners again, because that's the only team they've ever played in the Super Bowl. But it looks like Matt Stafford and Joey B.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a fun one. Do you? The interesting thing is that I think that, like, Cincinnati's probably thinking, we just won 2 road games to the number 1 and number 2 seed, so we can go on the road. Yeah. I guess I jumped the gun there. LA gets to play at home now.
Right.
I mean, they're going to be incredibly favored again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what I mean? And it's crazy.
Yeah, I've been, and I know both of us are Matt Stafford fans. Like,
we like the tough guys, man.
It's, it is. He's been a stud for a long time, and he just hasn't had a team around him. But man, some of the throws he's been making in these playoffs, I'm just he's not like that. He's arm not what he was. No, and that arm used to be so good and powerful.
And there's a little bit of it doesn't have quite the zip on it, and the deep balls are falling. Like, one should have been picked off.
Yeah,
easily, and just fell out of his hands, and it was like, dude, that was way underthrown. Yeah, but I mean,
I feel like Joe Burrow is like the next Stafford.
He's a tough guy too, and Ben. I mean, he's not Ben, Ben's a tough guy, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like getting out of tackles, and he's hard to bring down. And so, but he's not, I mean, Burrow's obviously not built that way. Ben being such a big dude and just could throw people around, it seemed like at times, you know, when he was in his prime. It's like, you want to tackle me? Shut up. But yeah, I mean, I like
humans.
Yeah, I like the tough guys. You know what I mean? I loved it. Tom Brady is probably going to retire. He is the greatest quarterback to ever play. I know I have a little bit of like infliction on my voice there, but the thing is he is.
Us 17 listeners.
Because I said he's the best. Yeah. No, but I mean, like the numbers are going to show that he's the greatest that's ever played. Whatever, but I love it that his last game, that dude came in and ran into him. Who was it? Was it Aaron? Who? It might have been Aaron Donald. Anyway, he runs into him, doesn't even knock him over, and Tom Brady turns and he's like, "Why didn't you give me a penalty? I'm bleeding." Yeah, there's a meme going around from the dodgeball. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. And so, like, he complains. This is the only problem I have with him is how much he complains. Wants a flag. He wants a flag, and the ref's like, dude, you didn't even fall down. And, like, Brady yelled at him. And in my head, which is probably not true, but in my head, I just picture, I'm Tom Brady. How dare you not call, with a bunch of bleepy bleeps in there. And then he got the flag thrown on him. And I was like, ha! Somebody stood up to Tom Brady. And he's like, "Nah, I'm done now. If I don't have control of the refs, I'm retiring." Imagine. That's the story in my head, and I know it's completely wrong. But it is funny that a ref finally said, "Dude, I'm not just going to give you every call. And then if you want to come over here and, you know, bleep me out over here because you wanted a call that you didn't even fall down."
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, dude, he still is what he is, right? Just because I don't like that he complained, like that doesn't say how good he was. The same way with like a lot of people tell me like, "Oh, you like Matt Stafford a lot? He's not that good." And I'm like, "That's fine. He's tough." I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that I like that I'm like, "Hey, he's not that good, but I like him. I like the fact that he takes a hit and gets back up." I can like that about a guy.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I definitely like, you know who's a stud like that is that Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I mean, just he's a stud like that. And he's bigger. But anyway, interesting. Like, they've been fun games to watch. Everything down to the wire. It's been really fun. I'm looking forward to watching the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Who you got? Early pick.
Early pick Bengals.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They find a way.
Oh yeah. I think they're gonna win. I think I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be just like the rest of it. It's gonna be down to the wire.
Yeah.
That
offensive line isn't good enough to blow a team out, I don't think.
Right.
And Cooper Kupp and Stafford still, he's not what he was, but he's, you know, he's still gonna. You get one game, dude.
Yeah.
You'll be young again when you only have one game left. Anyway, it's been fun. It's been a little bit of a distraction for me. I'm usually like really like still plugged into all the moves in the off season. Without any of that, I've noticed me paying attention a lot more to, you know, these games and not missing a game. Like I've watched every playoff game, which feels crazy because I'm usually like, oh, I'd like to see this one. I'd like to see this one. I'd like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been every one of them. So it's different for me, even though, I enjoy them, but like some of them I'm just like, I'll watch it if it's good at halftime.
Yeah. I haven't watched everyone, but I've come close.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. We have a short topic first. David Ortiz, elected to the Hall of Fame.
Congratulations, bud.
Big Papi. You have any doubts there?
On his career, no. Like I got nothing. I don't know that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Okay.
If that matters to which it does to some people. I don't think it matters after the first ballot, but I think there's something to being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Do you?
And I do.
Okay.
I do. But if you make it on the second ballot or the 8th ballot, I don't think there's a difference there.
To me, it's why. Why does it take 8 years for me to convince you that this certain guy belongs?
I don't think it's a convincing thing. I don't know, because the way I've heard some of these writers, which is a whole nother, I don't think writers should be voting on this, but the way I hear them talk about how they vote on their ballot, it's shed a different light on it for me, as far as some of them won't vote for people on the first ballot because they're like, he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he'll probably get in, and I'll probably vote for him later.
Unless you voted for 10 and couldn't get him on there, there's no reason to vote for a guy that you think is worthy. He's not going to do anything to change his numbers from now till next year.
Right. I agree with that. But based on how they do it and the way the writers talk,
yeah,
there is a distinction between a first ballot Hall of Famer and not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I hear you. I think that's dumb. You know what I mean?
I agree, but because the distinction is there,
you're just speaking from that knowledge.
Yes. I don't look at Big Papi as a first ballot Hall of Famer.
But you're there though. But you're with him. You're with them. You agree with them.
If
you're not just speaking from knowledge.
No, I'm saying if that's a thing that goes around, then I would put him in that category if that was the thing.
Is Curt Schilling
a Hall of Famer?
No, a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No.
But he's a Hall of Famer for you?
Yeah.
He's not for me. And it has nothing to do with anything he's ever done off the field, which is
social media.
Which is the next thing. Do you think that I'll even put Schilling in there? I think that there's some that probably doubt Curt Schilling was a Hall of Famer in general. But Bonds and Clemens, let's just go with just those two. Is it only steroids, or do you think the fact that they just weren't pleasant people kept them out?
I think the fact that they just weren't pleasant people assisted in keeping them out.
Okay.
But that's why I don't think it should be up to the writers.
And is that okay? That's another good point. Is that fair? Because I don't think it is.
I don't think.
I don't care. I don't care. Now there is a little bit though.
It's not the Hall of Good People.
That's it. But they do say that integrity and character is a part of the. So when they say that, I'm like, well, now it's kind of hard to argue.
Right.
However, is that? I don't know. You can just say whether you agree with that or not. I would say that's kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
It should tell the story of the players who were the best. And when I say the best, I say numbers aside. Now, numbers are obviously going to reflect who's the best. But in my opinion, if you're the best, then you're the best.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. Now, the only exception to that rule is if there's no good shortstops for a 5-10 year span. Like if there's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then, sorry, just because you were the best shortstop in a really lousy shortstop era doesn't mean you get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, regardless of whether or not you're the best, if you're not the best, I have a hard time getting you in. And
For me, it depends.
And to me, Curt Schilling was not one of the best.
He was always talked about when we were talking about the best.
The bloody sock, which some people were saying now is fake, which, come on. Why do we got to do stuff like that? Just let it be. Just tell the story.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, here's my thing. He's got to be in. He was on Backyard Baseball.
Oh, my gosh. So was Sammy Sosa.
Well, he's a cheater. Anyway.
Yeah, no, and I know there's and we want to get through this because we didn't want to spend 1 million hours on this, but there is talk about, Big Papi also was in the steroid conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we did want to kind of touch on that because you and I had that discussion, and I thought it was worthy of bringing up. Big Papi, first off, was not really in the steroid conversation. He was in the PED conversation, which there is a distinction, right? You're talking about steroids, like you don't have to do anything, right? I mean, for the most part, you take steroids, you get big. Where PEDs like assist you in your workouts for the most part, at least what a lot of the stuff that they're testing for now. Granted, there's still some other things that does build muscle mass, and I'm not a biologist. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about that, or a chemist or whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And anyway, the what we read was David Ortiz. First off, it was an extremely inaccurate test, where half of it probably was incorrect. But even if it wasn't, even if it was 100% correct, that he tested positive for something before the testing went into place, he was tested positive for something that wasn't banned yet. And so that's the whole thing, is like, he never tested positive, period. Yes, his name came up in this report. His name didn't come up in the report where they were like, yeah, we were sticking people with needles. He's on the list. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that list.
Right.
That's the Bonds and the A-Rod list. You know what I'm saying? Like, those guys that, and me personally, A-Rod's in too. I don't know, though. A-Rod's he's a little bit of a different one.
Yeah, he served some suspensions.
That doesn't do it for me, but yeah, I see what you're saying. But like, I think about Bonds in Pittsburgh and A-Rod in Seattle, which is what is understood to be their pre-steroid days.
Mm-hmm.
A-Rod got introduced when he was playing with the Rangers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were both the best player at their position.
Well, that's they were talking about like this, I forget his name, one of the coaches in Seattle when Griffey was coming up, and they were like, he kept saying, Griffey, you're doing all right, but there's this guy over in Pittsburgh. He was talking about Bonds.
Yeah, that guy was drunk.
It
fueled
Griffey to get even better. He's like, man, my man. I think he was a hitting coach, and he worked with both of them.
Okay.
So he was like, hey, my man over in Pittsburgh, he hit 2 home runs today. And Griffey would go out and he'd hit a homer. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like, man, and it pushed Griffey.
Yeah. And I say that the man was drunk, but I was, here I am, a Pirates fan who didn't like Bonds because he was a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so, like, yeah. And when you're a kid and, there's this guy that you're supposedly supposed to look up to and he blows you off and says, I don't have time for you kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, you're like, that guy's kind of crappy. And then, you just stick to Andy Van Slyke and say, well, he's our favorite.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, and Griffey was always my favorite. And they played a different position. So that's fair enough. I know they were both outfielders, but.
Yeah, and this guy was just talking about hitting anyway.
Yeah, I know. And Bonds is, I mean, I don't know what the proof of what the steroids really does. He's already hitting balls far. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, I don't think that's it. I don't think his home runs went up because he was jacked. I think his home runs went up because he was more patient. And he hit, you know what I mean? He hit better pitches, and that's just part of growing up in baseball. There's probably some truth to it. It's the biggest thing to me.
Bat, which is harder.
The biggest thing for me is that the steroids keep you on the field.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They keep you healthy.
And you look at Griffey's career where he was injured all the time, that probably kept him from hitting 800 home runs.
Not only did it keep you on the field, but your energy level was higher.
Oh yeah, you were ready to go every time.
You weren't playing tired.
No.
You just didn't get tired.
Anyway.
You just kept going.
The thing is we're both in the place where, and I think a lot of us are, Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. He's generational, one of the greatest hitters we've ever seen. No doubt. No question about it.
Yeah.
He should be in the Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens, I actually think that somebody could come to me and make a case that steroids helped pitchers more than it helped hitters, and I think I could believe them. Hitting is hard before you ever hit the ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he already had that 2011 vision and hit the ball well. A pitcher, on the other hand, you really could do a lot of good just with physical ability to make, you know what I'm saying? I think you could get more of an advantage. However, for whatever reason, I think that they were both left out because they were not pleasant with the media.
Yeah.
That's kind of crappy. They were two of the best. I mean, what's Clemens' numbers? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He won what? 7 Cy Youngs, 6 Cy Youngs?
I think it was 7.
That's ridiculous. And then you have people arguing for guys like Curt Schilling who never even sniffed it.
But he also won one of his Cy Youngs the last year of his career, where he was, a 2 ERA at 41 years old.
Yeah. Well,
but he had his 20 strikeout game in Boston. What was it, 1986?
86.
I mean, he wasn't on anything then.
So we don't think. I mean, I don't really.
Right.
To me, it just doesn't matter. They performed. I think that they get in, and I think that you tell the story. It's up to you. You know what I mean? It's up to you.
I mean, it was the whole era. So, I mean, not that everybody was doing it, but everybody was doing it.
Yeah, and I just think for a hitter, I think you have less of an advantage than a pitcher would. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Because hitting, like, steroids aren't going to help you hit a ball.
No, they're not going to help you square it up. You're still hitting a round ball with a round bat.
So after
it's not
that,
like I take
you could
steroids
say that. You could say that steroids affected how far it went a little bit.
A little bit.
You could say that steroids affected whether you were playing that day or not. But then after that, I mean, a physical change to what you're capable of doing on the mound. So if more people were doing it, then kudos to anyone who was a hitter who said, I got to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying kudos to you for cheating. I'm saying kudos to you for hitting the ball when they were doing that. That's what I meant to say. Not kudos to you for taking steroids. But yeah, I guess that's our take on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on past that. And if you guys have any comments on that, let us know, because we're really open. We just think that they can get in still with the today's game ballot that will happen in December, and maybe come next December we'll talk about it. But until then, we got more to get into, because we want to talk about the CBA negotiations and MLB bringing their proposal and all of that. They dropped their push for players to get to free agency earlier. So right now it's 6 years and you get to free agency. And what they were trying to do was get it was kind of confusing. It was like, oh, it's 5 years. Unless you're 30, then you just go to free agency at age 30. Something goofy like that. I'm glad that they dropped this. I think that was ridiculous. I think it would have killed a team like the Pirates. I mean, we complain right now that we have a guy for 5 years and then trade him. And now if you lower that, then you're talking even less.
Right.
If you lower that even 1 year, at this point, our conversation later becomes way more real.
Mm-hmm.
When do you trade Bryan Reynolds? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I know that a lot of Pirates fans use that they use that argument to say, well, they'll get good and we'll trade him. Well, understand that that's how things work. We talked about that last week. So for anybody that's listening to us, you understand our stance on that. If you don't get that player to sign an extension, you have to trade him in order to keep turning this thing around. You can't hold on to him and let him go to free agency.
Right. The problem we've had in the past is that we would bring them up and they wouldn't perform, and then they would finally start performing in year 3 or 4, and then we'd have to trade them. Yeah. The goal is to bring them up and then be good.
Yeah, and that's the thing,
is you have them good for 4 years.
Yeah, and that wasn't the way that things worked. You brought a guy up and let him learn how to be good at that level. Now you're waiting until a guy is fully ready so that when you call him up, he makes an impact.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you have to be in the camp to what is quote-unquote service time manipulation. Maybe. Mm-hmm. If I could hit 250 and hang with 12 home runs, that's good enough for me to be there. You're right, that is. But then in year 3, all of a sudden you're hitting 289 with 30 bombs, and I could have just waited till then.
Mm-hmm.
Now, or the year in between those two, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So your point is right on. So anyway, if we would have went to free agency earlier, that would have made it a little bit harder, or just push the Pirates to sign extensions earlier.
Yeah.
Or something like that. You know what I mean? Which means you're gambling a little bit more. Signing earlier extensions, like the one we signed to Gregory Polanco, for instance, or Starling Marte, very early in their career. The Marte one worked out, the Polanco one didn't. And that's the way those things work when you sign extensions that early.
Yeah.
But when you sign them later, like the one that we're looking at signing Bryan Reynolds to, it's going to cost you.
Right.
So anyway, they're still pushing for 2-year arbitration. I've got no problem with that because I think the Pirates need to spend more money anyway. So quit your crying and pay these players. The bump to minimum salary to $775. I've made it clear that if you're not going to pay a guy $1 million, then my idea is if you're on the 40-man roster, you make league minimum, period. I don't care if you're in AAA or not. I don't care if you're in AA. You make league minimum if you're on the 40-man roster.
I agree with that.
Then you're not keeping a guy down just so you don't have to pay him major league money.
Right.
So then it's like, well, I'm paying him anyway. If I think he can hack it, O'Neal Cruz, get up here.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of I'll save money if I send him to AAA. Like that's garbage.
Right.
So they're not even talking about that. That's not in the negotiation at all. That's something that I'm just saying as myself.
Yeah.
Institution of an 8-team draft lottery. This is something that's probably coming. This is an anti-tank kind of thing. And what this does is if you're the worst team or you're the 8th worst team, it's a lottery that gets picked to see who picks first 1 through 8. And I've got no problem with this. I think it's fine. If there are teams out there that are tanking, then maybe this will derail them from doing so. I think 8 teams might be a lot. I think you'd be surprised looking at the bottom 8 teams how different some of those teams are.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Like I think your 7 and 8 are going to be significantly better than your 1 through 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think if you did, even like a 5-team draft lottery, I think that would be fair enough.
Yeah.
That would keep teams from like ultimately tanking to have the worst record. Where, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe you have to do at least 6. I don't know. I mean, you do want to push teams like the Pirates. I mean, like, here's the thing. As much as I want to back them up saying this would be bad if they got the free agency earlier, yes, we can't play with free agency money, but we're not spending near as much money as we think we could.
Right.
I mean, this is awful. There's no reason we should be going into a season with Anthony Alford and Ben Gamble's not even bad, but Anthony Alford and Greg Allen and Kai Tom and Fowler and you know what I'm saying? Like this list of guys, we could have upgraded that already.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all you have to do is spend just a little bit more money to upgrade that. Not even much. So anyway, they're going $245 million base luxury tax threshold. You said MLB was somewhere around like 215, 211, something like that.
Yeah, they were trying to reduce it, which is what they've been doing. They've been trying to reduce it.
Do you like that?
I don't know.
If they reduce it,
I think then that means find a middle ground.
Then that means that the players that or the teams that have payrolls more than that will pay more into the luxury tax, which means more shared revenue for teams like the Pirates. So you got to think that makes sense. But then the next thing is they're talking about shared revenue, and I know there was another thing where they were saying that they wanted to make cuts to revenue sharing. And Major League Baseball is saying, no, we have no interest in changing revenue sharing.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of like, that's a good thing because that's money that we're getting. What they should do is you have to use revenue sharing for your Major League roster or for your 40-man roster.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? No more like, oh, we're pushing into these development things. You spend your own money on that.
Mm-hmm.
We're using the money from revenue sharing for our Major League team, which I'll consider your entire 40-man roster.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that is where revenue sharing goes, period. Now, who's to say if they get $30 million in revenue sharing that they don't just only spend that $30 million on their roster and then spend their money somewhere? It still isn't going to stop them.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
But what's the threshold right now? It's like 225.
Is it? I'm not sure where it is. Yeah, off the
I
top of my
know
head, I knew, but with all these numbers flying around, I get confused.
Yeah, I know the players were trying to get it higher so that they could get more money without the team being penalized, and MLB was trying to lower it, saying, "No, we need to penalize you sooner."
Yeah, it was that's the 210 and 230 were 20% tax on any dollar between 210 and 230. Once you got to 230, it moved to 32% from 230 to 250, and 62.5% on each dollar spent above 250. That's a big time tax when you get above 250. So there's like different levels of that. I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That you have different levels of it. It's not just a. I mean, what they're reporting right now is 245 base. Now maybe that is the 20%, which right now is at 210. So 210 to 230 is the base right now. If you fall into that, it's a 20%. However much you spend above 210, until you get to 230, then it moves up. So they're saying base 245. That's a huge increase.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't care. You know what I mean? That's for them to figure out, that kind of stuff. I'm just not. I think whatever it is, you need to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, any changes to revenue sharing is probably not going to happen. Now that number might change, but what they do as far as that structure, revenue sharing, how they give money, how they disperse it, what the Pirates and other teams are able to spend that money on, those sort of things. So MLB is also, and this is the next big thing. So basically, they came with this. MLB said, no, but let's keep talking. And so they're talking for longer periods of time and back-to-back days. So,
and face-to-face.
Face-to-face in meetings. We talked about that last week, and that's a good thing. But the change in things right now is that MLB is now saying that they're willing to cancel games. They're willing
now let's
for some of these games to be canceled.
Because it's not technically just MLB. It's the owners
right
make up the MLB.
Okay,
so
yeah.
The owners are willing to allow it. They don't want it. Obviously, they don't want it.
Yeah.
But it's the willingness to cancel games if needed.
Right. Basically, they're telling the players they're not budging from a lot of these things. Yeah. And that's kind of a stinky thing, because if they're willing to do it, I wonder if that's just, hey, we're willing to do it. We're going to say that even if they're not. Because if they didn't.
I think it is. I think it's a bargaining chip.
It's posturing, right? Mm-hmm. Because if it's not.
They're fluffing feathers.
If they're not willing
puffing feathers, I should say.
If they're not willing to cancel games and they came out and said, well, we're not going to cancel games, then the players are just going to stay where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually they're going to say they're going to cave because they don't want to cancel games.
Right.
But that's kind of a stinky thing to hear, though.
Yeah.
So, not a fan of that. We've been saying there's optimism, then there's, oh, crap, we're scared, and then there's, oh, this is a good sign. We don't think they'll cancel regular season games. Now it's, man, every week that goes by, I'll say, it gets a little more What are you guys doing?
Yeah,
we're not
into February.
We got to get closer. Yeah, we're going to February now. So
pitchers and catchers should be reporting in 2 weeks.
Right, which isn't going to happen.
They usually no.
That's not going to happen.
It's not.
They're too far away. Well, the Super Bowl better be real good.
I think they'll have a deal done. I think pitchers, catchers, players will all report at the same time. I don't think you're going to have a early start for pitchers and catchers.
Dude, the transactions are going to go nuts.
Oh, they're going to go berserk.
It's going to be ridiculous.
It's going to be very hard to keep up with. But I look for a deal getting done by the end of February.
Well, you heard it here. End of February, Jake's making the call.
I think players report to spring training by March 5th. What day of the week is that even? I didn't even look it up on a calendar.
Doesn't matter. You called it.
I'm going to look this up on a calendar so that I can actually make. Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair. March 5th is a Saturday.
So we'll say the 7th. Just put it on a Monday.
There you go. If that's right.
Nailed it.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back and talk about Bryan Reynolds and all the teams that want to take him from the Pirates. All right, let's take a break. Thanks for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Check us out on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Bridge, 2 Buctober, likes, follows, all those things. Talk to us. We want to hear from you. Audio podcast available at your favorite podcast app or website. Video podcast available on YouTube, subscribers, likes, all those things. We will be right back. All right, guys. So let's get into this Bryan Reynolds thing because we keep seeing this. We've said it a few times, right? But there's a lot of reports that most of the time are being written from the perspective of the other team. And it seems like no matter what, when you say, we really need an outfielder, who does Pittsburgh have? Because they never keep their players. You know what I mean? It's just this thing that, like, they're willing to blow. Or they look at Baltimore. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They go somewhere. Like you said, they look at a rebuilding team and they say, who can we pry away from that team?
Yeah.
Is it that simple? I mean, don't you realize that, and maybe they don't, maybe everybody's just completely oblivious to the fact that if the Pirates are 2 years away from being good, like if you're someone, and I'm being like, we've said before, 2023, we believe we could see some competitive baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not playoffs. That depends on pitching, but competitive baseball. Even if you don't think that starts till 2024, doesn't that still make sense to keep Bryan Reynolds?
Yeah. And so the other name floating around, we've heard of is Cedric Mullins from Baltimore.
Yeah, there was
so
one. Yep.
You're looking at two teams that are rebuilding. You're not going to pry the cornerstone.
Do you think Cedric Mullins is as much of a cornerstone of that team that Bryan Reynolds is for the Pirates?
I do.
Isn't he closer to free agency than Reynolds is, though?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think this year was his second year, I think. Maybe his third, because,
how often do you see
this COVID thing has years going by and I don't even realize it. I'm like, something, whatever in real life, just like, hey, this happened like last year. Like, that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Oh, it's just in general, I lose track of time.
Yeah, I get that.
But
I think the older you get, the more you lose track of time.
Sure.
Cedric Mullins right now is 27 years old. And I thought that his service time right here is, you're right. His earliest free agency is 2026. He's only been 2 years. Bryan Reynolds actually has a little bit more. I mean, barely.
Yeah.
But he's also 2026. And so, yeah, we're at the same place here where we're saying 2026. And, I mean, Baltimore's got some prospects too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I would imagine they feel pretty good about where they're headed.
But like
they're both
anytime. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, so in 2021, Bryan Reynolds was a 6-win player, and Cedric Mullins a 5.7. Cedric Mullins on his career is a 5.4 though, because his first couple stints, you're talking about negative WAR, where Bryan Reynolds only had one year of that, right? But he's a 10.6. So I mean, I think Bryan Reynolds is a little more of that cornerstone. But the biggest difference to me is that when you look at the outfield of the Pirates, it's Bryan Reynolds. If you get rid of him, there's nothing left.
Right.
Certainly as far as, let's even say just experience. Outside of Ben Gamel, but he's not a, he's not a guy you're saying you're going to be. But like Baltimore has Austin Hayes, right?
Yeah.
So is it Austin Hayes? Is it Austin? Oh, shoot. Yeah, it's Austin Hayes.
Yeah.
And so, you're talking about a guy who's free agent at 2026, center fielder who runs around a lot, same as Cedric Mullins.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't have quite the numbers that Cedric Mullins has, which is why maybe a Cedric Mullins trade could bring back quite a bit in return. But Austin Hayes can go get it in the outfield. So at least you have someone there with 22 homers to his name. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and they...
Actually, I'm sorry. Career 31 homers. Cedric Mullins' career 37 homers. So, like, you're talking about a comparable player, and, like, the Pirates have absolutely no... I mean, he's a 10-win player with 47 homers in his career, Bryan Reynolds. We don't have anybody close to that for the outfield, obviously.
Right. They got that Santander too. Anthony Santander.
In like a corner, but you know what I'm saying? Like I'm even saying, Cedric Mullins is center fielder, so is Austin Hayes. So you got a straight 1-to-1 replacement. If you do trade Cedric Mullins, then Austin Hayes goes in and nothing's hurt. Like we still have a good player in center field. Where we're just like, I don't know, who's going to play right field for us this year? How in the world am I going to figure out center field if we trade him?
Yeah.
But, so anyway, but the point is still the same. They go after these guys. It does make sense to me a little bit for Cedric Mullins. And it makes sense because you're not going to have to give up as much to get Cedric Mullins. Yeah. However, the trades that we've seen probably might get you Cedric Mullins. But they are not going to get you Bryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
They're ridiculous. The offers that come through are ridiculous. Now, they have one thing right on some of these articles, and that is that it should start with pitching. So we're gonna do this. We're going to entertain this. You and I, two people who say do not trade Bryan Reynolds, extend him. Mm-hmm. But we're going to entertain this. If you're not going to extend him, and you're not going to go sign some free agents to try to win some games in 2022.
Sure.
Then let's trade him. Now, I'm not saying this as a real suggestion, but like me and you right now, let's trade him. What does it take? Who's going to come with an offer that says, okay, here's the thing. Nobody's untouchable. You say you always listen. If this offer came to your table and said, we want Bryan Reynolds and we're willing to give you this, what does that look like? And one of the teams that's recently in this is the team that we traded Jacob Stallings to, who seemed to be asking for Bryan Reynolds at the trade deadline and Stallings, and seemed to be asking for Bryan Reynolds when the Stallings deal was happening.
Yeah. And
the Marlins are interested. And that's one of the last ones. The two last ones I saw were the Marlins and the Brewers. Brewers, listen, we're not trading him to you because we know you're going to extend him, and we don't want to have to play against him all those years. This is not happening. I don't care who you offer at this point, right? Are you with me? I don't care who you offer. I don't care who you send me.
Right. There's not a person, not a... No.
No. I don't even know why I'm thinking.
No package.
What about my goodness, Woodward and Burns?
No.
Really? Is it Woodward? Why am I... Not Corbin Burns and I can't think of this dude's name.
Are you talking about the pitcher who can hit too? Woodruff?
Yeah. Woodruff, not Woodward.
Woodruff. Yeah.
Wow, I drew an absolute blank right there. Woodruff and Burns. You're talking about right now. Yeah. Cy Young guys.
Yeah. I don't think I could do that to Reynolds because now they're just not good.
I don't think that I think they still are. They still have some good pitching, and if he solidifies the outfield, and
but
you know that playing in Milwaukee, you don't need that pitching because you're going to hit so much.
What do they even really need an outfielder for? They got Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain.
Lorenzo Cain's getting up there though. He's not performing the way he was. They've got some other guys in the mix too, but I see what you're saying. But Bryan Reynolds is better than all of them, including Yelich right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so why wouldn't you, right? Then you can spin one of those guys and turn him around for somebody else to help you out if that is the case. This is the problem I have with it. Somebody's good, everybody wants him. So they write these articles about it. But the Marlins, when I saw that one come across, I thought to myself, I think the Marlins could make an offer that I think I would trade Bryan Reynolds to the Marlins. I think I could. I could see a scenario where if you're not going to sign anyone else this year and try to put an outfield out there, and if you're not going to, the pitching that we have is a lot of interesting 4-5 guys. Right? We still have no 1, 2, 3. We're looking at a bunch of guys who can try to sneak in, but we're looking for all 5 of them to be that kind of guy. And that's the thing that bugs me about it, is I just don't see that rotation being something that I'm ever going to be really excited about. So you're not going to win a lot of games. And that's what we've been saying. We like some of the pieces we have. It's not going to all come together the way that we would like it to just be competitive, to win more games. Not more games. I think we'll win more games. Just with having like Key Bryant healthy in there all year, and a couple other pieces that we don't have to have. I don't think about necessarily the guys we have as much as I think about not having Kai Tom in the lineup. And not having, you know what I mean? Nagowski and Fowler, and you know what I'm saying? Even like, and some of those guys had good runs. Phillip Evans, Eric Gonzalez, you know what I'm saying? Like, these guys are all gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there will be somewhat of an improvement. But obviously, if you're not going to push to even try to win, like, outfield to me was a no-brainer. If you could have got a couple corner outfielders in free agency, and I just don't see it happening now.
Yeah.
There was guys out there that you could have got that could have been serviceable major league players, with Ben Gamble being a 4th outfielder, maybe a platoon with one of those guys. And I think you could have won more games just with that alone.
Yeah.
And then a starting pitcher who's better than Quintana. But anyway, the Marlins have a ton of prospects that are really close.
Yeah.
And we've seen what they've done with pitching recently with Alcantara and Pablo not Pablo Reyes. I'm looking at those Brewers players. Is it Pablo Rojas? Oh boy, I'm awful tonight with remembering people. And that's been a lot of fun for me. But
welcome to my life. I can't.
Welcome to your life.
I'm bad with that.
Pablo Lopez. So yeah, Pablo Lopez, Sandy Alcantara, Trevor Rogers, Jesus Luzardo. Eliezer Hernandez, Sixto Sanchez, Edward Cabrera. All these guys are kind of there. So they're stacked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've got more, right? I mean, we talked about their prospects, and I have them pulled up in one of my windows here. If I could just find that window. So Edward Cabrera and Sixto Sanchez are two of the guys that are there on that list I just read, but they're still in their prospect list.
Mm-hmm.
Khalil Watson, who we should be familiar with that name. The Pirates he was rumored to be on the Pirates' radar for the draft. He's their number one. I've seen a lot of people say it has to start with Watson. No, it doesn't. It does not have to start with a shortstop. What it has to start with, in order for me to say yes, it has to start with elite pitching prospects. More than one elite pitching prospects. We believe we have a really good prospect in Roansy Contreras. We believe that Quinn Priester can be really good. And I don't know that these guys are like Garrett Cole caliber guy. You know what I'm saying? Like when Garrett Cole was coming up, we were like, Garrett Cole's going to be our ace. And look what he's done, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that these guys are there, but if we could get those two guys who are like a really good like 3 or a good 2, if you could have 4 of those guys, and then maybe one of them blossoms into something more. I mean, shoot, you've got a great rotation at that point, like the Marlins have. Edward Cabrera on that list, he's number 2. Max Meyer, which to me, no doubter, has to be included in this deal. Number 4, Sixto Sanchez. We just talked about him. He had some injuries last year, so maybe that's a guy that they include. Number 5, J.J. Bleday, who's an outfielder with some pop. And I think that he has to be a part of the deal. Now, you're saying, if you give me 3 of your top 5, 3 of your top 5, and they have a good system, if you want to offer me 3 of your top 5, plus they've got 2 catchers, number 28 and 29, Peyton Henry, who they just got from the Brewers in a trade, and Nick Fortes, who I don't know very much about. Both these guys had a cup of coffee in the major leagues last year. They're 24, 25 years old. If you give me 3 of your top 5, not with Khalil Watson not included, right? We've got shortstops. We're fine. I mean, obviously you can never have too many, but I'm not looking for just good talent. I'm looking for specific players. Edward Cabrera, 23 years old, he's made his major league debut. Max Meyer, 22, has not, but he's legit. He's the guy that the Marlins say, well, we're not going to trade Max Meyer. Okay, well, if you want Bryan Reynolds, you are. And then Sixto Sanchez is a guy who's been really good. Like, he's been good. I would say Alcantara and Trevor Rogers, obviously, off limits. And that makes sense. Those dudes are unreal. But then you have to throw in J.J. Bleday, who has not made his debut yet, and he's a little bit further away. He's looking to start at AAA this year. His ETA is still this year. Much like a O'Neal Cruz type. He played in the Arizona Fall League and put up good numbers. If you really could say, J.J. Bleday is your outfielder for outfielder, Bryan Reynolds. But in order to do this, you've got to give up 2 of those top 5 pitching prospects. So Max Meyer and 1 of the other 2. Even if it's Sixto Sanchez, even though he just came off an injury, even if it's him. Do you accept that trade? And those 2 catchers I mentioned, if you give me 1 of those 2 catchers, they're on the Major League roster right now as a backup. They're still in the top 30. I don't know if they'll be in our top 30, but they're in the top 30, and they've had a cup of coffee at the majors. Actually, both of them fared decently well in their 5 or 6 games. That doesn't really count, right? The thing is that they've made it, so they'll make it. Now, we'll dump somebody along with, right? Like you said, we'll dump a pitcher.
We'll dump a pitcher. I mean, we're going to have to dump somebody off our 40-man.
Yeah, you may as well just give it to them and let them make a decision.
Right. But,
so if that trade was... go ahead.
It's an interesting offer, and you're obviously going to listen to it, and you're obviously going to mull it over, because that's a lot of talent. It's a lot of talent for,
for one player.
One player. I mean, we're going to throw somebody else in there, but really one player.
Right.
So, man, you'd be hard-pressed not to make that move.
So here's the thing. Everybody would flip their lids if Bryan Reynolds got traded right now. But if this is the deal coming back, it would be really hard to say, no, we're not moving him. And that's considering the fact that we would be stuck in the outfield because J.J. Bleday is not going to just show up and play outfield in Pittsburgh.
Right.
He's going to start the year in AAA.
Maybe.
Oh, I mean, I would assume I would say that they would put him in AAA.
I would say he would have a shot to win the job in spring training. We have nobody.
Well, that's not true. When you think 40-man roster and you look at our outfielders, I mean, we do have bodies. Bodies we have.
Yeah, we have bodies, yeah.
We have Ben Gamel, Anthony Alford, Greg Allen. Could be your outfield with Jared Oliva being your fourth outfielder, and you don't even have to touch anybody else. It's possible. This is what I'm saying. If that's the effort that you're going to put into winning games for 2022, then I could very well see J.J. Bleday start off with the rest of them in AAA, and the rest of them meaning Smith and Jigba, Jack Sawinski, Travis Swaggerty. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's very doable. And then say, let's see which one of these guys steps up and pushes their way onto this team first, and then pushes their way onto this team second, and pushes their way onto this. And then, Or
they all three just blow up, and we're like, oh, by the way, we're rehauling our outfield. We're bringing them all three up. They've all been playing together. We're going to keep them together.
Could, yeah.
That'd be crazy.
That'd be nuts.
Yeah, it'd be insane.
But that's the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know.
And you still have, I mean, most of our outfield prospects are a little bit further away. I mean, but Cal Mitchell's in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And he's not that far away either. Now, I know he's not on the 40-man, so it would have to be some shuffling there. But I'm just saying, could you imagine going into 2023 with Bryan Reynolds and then trying to figure out this Roansy Contreras? I'm trying to think of some of the guys that are Miggy Yahoo. I'm trying to think of some of the guys that are kind of forcing their way in. Bryce Wilson. Well, maybe still Will Crow. Maybe Zach Thompson. So there's that, like, that's a rotation.
Yeah.
Or
maybe,
and Zach Thompson's part of that because he came in the Stallings trade.
Mitch Keller makes a jump.
Oh, Mitch Keller.
Maybe Mitch Keller, maybe this does play out for him to be a good thing.
Or imagine going, we didn't even say Brubaker. Imagine going into 2023. Let's put Brubaker in it. Imagine going into it with Max Meyer coming up. One of those other two guys I talked about, either Cabrera or Sanchez.
Mm-hmm.
Roansy Contreras. Brubaker and Miggy Yahoo, Bryce Wilson, Mitch Keller. Like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, that's a legit starting rotation.
Yeah.
Now, obviously the only way Mitch Keller's in that conversation is how well he does in 22.
Sure.
And then you also got, like, what's the progression of Miguel Yajure? How does Bryce Wilson? We think we like what we've seen so far, so maybe that is a progression. If not, you still have Will Crow. You know what I'm saying? You still have a couple of these other guys, and then you also have the ability to pick up somebody else in that process. We don't know what 2022 looks like. We don't know if 2023. If you look at the prospect page, and I say, what's the ETA for Quinn Priester? Well, MLB Pipeline says 2023. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, Carmen Mlodzinski. Carmen Mlodzinski's pipeline is 2023. So maybe he's involved. Maybe Tanaj Thomas is involved. He's 2023 as well for an ETA. Michael Burrows is 2023 for an ETA. Now, these ETAs are literally just, we think he can be there by then. That doesn't mean anything.
Right.
But it shows an indication that somebody believes that by 2023, this player could possibly be there. Brennan Malone, who's the guy we got, the second guy with Leover Peguero that we got in the Marte trade. He's on that 2023 ETA. And another outfielder we didn't talk about, Matt Frazier. Does he continue to do better? He's a 2022, it says. Kyle Nicholas is a 2023, another one of the guys we got from the Marlins. He's the guy that came over in the Stallings trade.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I'm just telling you, if you were to add those two guys they would find their way onto this rotation in 2022.
Yeah. Max
Meyer probably at the end of the year. Cup of coffee, like I believe Roansy Contreras got. Cup of coffee. I think he'll maybe Contreras has the ability to get 5 to 10 starts this year. Maybe more, but maybe 5 to 10 starts. More of a stint.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's Meyer and, you know what I mean? And I don't know. In 2023,
And then Blade comes up
and you got,
hit some homers.
You got Blade. Then you start talking about your outfield. Because then you got Sawinski in the mix. You got Caden Smith and Jigba. You've got Travis Swaggerty in the mix. You've got Blade in the mix. You've got Matt Frazier in the mix. Maybe Cal Mitchell even. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe. Probably not it. Andy Rodriguez is a little bit further away than that. And I know that he's a catcher right now. There's some first base. There's some outfield but he's a hitter. You know what I mean? So I would say no on him. But, that's a lot of outfielders now to start looking at. Plus, you don't know who's coming along beside that. You don't know if O'Neal Cruz makes a move to right field. You don't know. You know what I'm saying? There's all those other options. And that's why when you look at 2023, you could say, dude, they could be good. But that's even without Bryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't give you a 3-hitter who kind of holds it down. That's still a lot of inexperience.
Mm-hmm.
Where Bryan Reynolds is going to be that guy. But I'm just saying, to add those 2 pitchers plus another outfielder who's on his way up.
Yeah, and I guess it's a tough trade to turn down.
And it almost makes it feel like. You know what I mean? It almost makes it feel like it would be worth it, even though I've been just stop talking about it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'd still like to see him extend him.
Yeah, I think if the extension happens, I agree.
But I think that if you go to him with an extension offer and, he's asking for crazy numbers, so you're saying, well, nothing's not opening his pockets up that much, then that would be a very, very tempting trade.
Yeah. So I'm going to look this up because we talked last week about our Baseball America, our guys that are in the 40-man. Roansy Contreras are in the top 100 Baseball America.
Mm-hmm.
40-man. Where did I get that? Roansy Contreras is number 80. Quinn Priester is number 88. Okay? With that in mind, Sixto Sanchez is number 64. Yuri Perez, right-handed pitcher Yuri Perez, number 48. Now he's a little bit further away. Edward Cabrera, that I talked about, number 69. And right-handed pitcher Max Meyer. Why does it say? Oh, that's something completely different. What the heck? How do I read the rest of this article?
Pay money.
5 Marlins prospects, 4 pitchers, 1 infielder made the cut. And it talks about Yuri Perez being number 48, but then it's read next. Maybe that is part of it. Khalil Watson, number 60. Sixto Sanchez, 64. Cabrera, 69. And Max Meyer, but it doesn't say what number he is. And J.J. Bleday, maybe he's just right off of it. Off of the top 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's like, but he's still in the top 10, of the Marlins.
Right.
But, Yuri Perez, that's an interesting one. We didn't even talk about him. Where does he land on this? He's not on their 40-man. Where did I pull up their prospects? Boy, I got so many tabs open right now, and I'm wasting time. But here's the Padres. Let me just go to the Marlins. So the Padres also are on this list, and they have some interesting ones too, but I know we're spending a lot of time on the Marlins here. Yuri Perez is their number 6. So, yeah, bring him along too. He's only 18, though. So I'm not sure that that's where you want to go with this. Even though he could possibly be there, like, you hang on to him. I want those guys that are 22, 23 years old. They're close.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we are going long. So really the thing is that we don't think that Bryan Reynolds is going to get traded.
No.
I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Marlins would give up that much. And the conversations that I've seen of where they think they're going to, who they think they're going to give up, I just think to myself, you're not even close.
Right.
The Padres offer was close. So there was an offer where one writer says, what does this trade look like? And you're talking Mackenzie Gore, Ryan Weathers, who just made his debut. And then there was a 6'7" outfielder who's a long ways off, which is the part that we had a problem with. And there was one other pitcher who is a high draft pick, older college draft pick, who was a relief pitcher who looks like he could be really good. And it was like, yeah, I like that. The only thing we didn't like is while the outfielder had a high upside, he's not close enough. And I think for anybody that you're going to trade Reynolds for, you've got to be getting them onto the team by 2023.
Yeah.
And so that's the only thing we didn't like about it. But the two lefties were like, yeah, that could be really good too. But they're almost immediate too. And so that's the thing that kind of makes it. Is it possible that Bryan Reynolds gets traded? Yeah. But if a return like this comes back, I'm almost okay with it.
I hate to admit it, but yeah.
I just think if somebody blows you away based on what you've done to improve the 2022 team, it's just hard. It's just hard. Yeah. When you say you're going to give me 22, 23, 24, and 25, that's 4 years of Bryan Reynolds. If you give me 3 of those years and then we trade him for a haul like that, when we have other guys ready to come up for 2025, 2026, if you can't get an extension done.
Right. But not only that, when you wait that long, you're not going to get a haul like that back. Every year you wait, every year that you wait to trade him, the price comes down.
Because of years of control.
Yeah.
You're right.
Now,
which is why we say he's untouchable right now.
Right. Now, if a team like, somebody who has plenty, like if the Dodgers end up wanting him and he's a year away, they might trade a little bit more because they know we're going to re-sign him.
Yeah. That's what he said.
This isn't a rental player. This is our guy. We're gonna get him and then extend him.
Yeah, and he's gonna have to keep putting up these numbers or better.
Mm-hmm. Which is what but you've seen it because they gave up a good bit to get Mookie Betts.
Right.
Because they knew we were gonna sign him.
Yeah, 100%. Yankees, Braves, Brewers, Red Sox, Mariners, Phillies, Marlins. All these guys are on lists of teams that are saying, "Well, I think we could get Bryan Reynolds."
Mm-hmm.
Stop it. Unless you're coming with 2 arms and an outfielder in your top 5 and here by 2023, it's non-starter for me.
Yeah.
And then there's other pieces involved. But there has to be 2 arms and an outfielder here by 2023 in your top 5.
Yeah.
And, fans of other teams are going to say, you're crazy. Well, that's how much we like Bryan Reynolds here.
Right.
If you really want him, that's what it costs.
Yeah, you're going to have to pay.
That's it, huh?
That's, yeah.
That's it for me. So, we're pretty deep into this. I think we can just shut this thing down. So, not sure what's coming up next week, actually, right now. So,
yeah, they haven't released any dates, I don't think, that I've seen.
For any meetings, yeah, I don't know when they're meeting or anything like that. Listen, guys, we're not trading away Bryan Reynolds, but we wanted to entertain what would it take for me to say, I'm okay with this deal.
Yeah, I get it.
I think that if you light it up and you say that we can make your 23-24 team a lot better, that it wouldn't hurt that bad to lose Bryan Reynolds for 22 and 23. Teams that, right, we're not going to the playoffs in 22 or 23, I don't think.
Right.
We're not trading him away. We just think there's offers there that could blow us away.
You got to listen.
But I don't want to, and I know you guys don't either. I tell you what I do want to listen to, though. Your guys' comments, hit us up. Let us know what you think. And let us know if you have any questions that we can talk about. Until then, let's go Bucs.
Let's go Bucs.
Let's go Bucs.